And we are back. We are live with the Greyhorn Pagans podcast. Welcome, welcome, everybody. Today I'm here with special guest Jesse from Midgard Musings. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for for coming on the podcast, connecting the tribes as we are as we
Absolutely.
do with the Greyhorn Pagans. Introduce yourself for the people who may not know you yet, although I doubt there will be many. But
Yeah, you never know. But yes, thank you for having me on. And as Stein mentioned, my name's Jesse, and I host a podcast myself. My YouTube channel is called Midgard Musings, and the podcast that I host myself is called Random Heathen Ramblings. I've been a pagan of the Norse or Germanic flavor variety, if you want to call it such, for about 8 years now, give or take. If I had to put a time or a reckoning to it. So, and I've been podcasting uh, regularly for 4 years. This is the fourth season of the Random Heathen Ramblings podcast, and I've had my channel for a little bit longer than that. So, yeah, I live in the United States. I'm in the state of Tennessee. I'm originally from New York. So, as I tell a lot of people, I am born and born and raised a Northman. I'm from the north, at least the north part
oh,
of this
right,
country.
right,
Yeah,
good one,
yeah.
good one. So on the path for 8 years, what made you find the path of your ancestors again? I'm always intrigued by that because everybody has always so many different
Sure.
paths they walk in different ways that they find the gods again or the gods find them, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've always like telling the tale as it were, because for so many modern heathens, myself included, they find this way, or they find a way that speaks to them, and they come into it from a previous religion. So I was raised in Christianity, from birth, basically. And I became of age where I was, looking to kind of spread my wings, leave home, and I moved south. I moved to a southern state in Tennessee, and I was still Christian at the time. This was probably the mid 2000s, so 2005 or six, give or take. And I left the teachings that I was raised in because I was raising a lot of questions, and not really feeling like those doctrines or those worldviews were aligning with me anymore. But when I moved to Tennessee, I was still believing in Christian doctrines, and trying to find like a church home here. And I went to a bunch of churches. I've attended many different denominational, uh, versions of Christianity. I've attended Pentecostal services, Baptist services, Methodist services. I've been to several Catholic masses. So there's a lot of there was a time where I was like just checking different things out and seeing what fit, and still nothing really truly spoke to my inner self, to my heart. And
Hmm.
I guess it was probably around the time that um, the History Channel released Vikings,
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
which it was a big turning point for a lot of people, because we got to see a really vibrant and entertaining portrayal of a time in history that was pretty interesting. And I saw some of what was going on in the shows, and I'm like, I want to know more about what they're portraying in terms of their pagan beliefs. And so that kind of was the spark that lit the fire to get me into learning about Germanic heathenry. And I have a lot of Northern European ancestry, which include German, Dutch, but also Scottish and Irish, and some of the Celtic tribes that existed in continental Europe. But
Hmm.
I I I started with kind of just looking at the gods as my new devotion versus the Christian God. So I became more polytheist than monotheist. And then I quickly learned that so much of what heathenry for me encompassed was more about connecting and finding our place with our ancestors and the localized spirits, the Vatir, the whites as they were called sometimes, the localized spirits, because they exist within and around us in our profane space, whereas the gods exist in their divine or sacred space. So I really started to explore uh, that aspect of heathenry, and as I did more research and as I became more involved with that, it really resonated within me and made me feel like I was more at home with my spirituality and religious practices than I ever was before with Christianity.
That's so cool. Like, I don't think I have met someone just yet for whom the TV show Vikings was also their starting point, to say. Because for me, that was a big thing too. I tried the Catholic thing, the Christian thing for a while. Like, a lot of my family was raised Roman Catholic. So, easy access. Used to go to church every once in a while with my grandmother as a little kid. But
Mm.
yeah, then indeed, I saw Vikings, and I was like, this, this, just
Yeah.
this is this. I feel this, and yeah, was interested in the whole paganism, animism thing for a while, but just I hadn't found that spark yet. And it's really cool to hear that for someone else Vikings was that too, even though it's very Hollywood still,
Oh
of
yeah.
course.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't recommend people use Vikings as a baseline for the actual belief system, because it's for entertainment, and they take some parts of history and they embellish it and they make it again for the entertainment aspect. But
yeah, but I mean, if you're gonna watch it, then stick to the first. Was it 2, 3 seasons before they turned woke?
yeah, I think I pretty much stopped watching the whole thing when, like, after they killed Ragnar, after Ragnar dies in the snake pit. I'm
Yeah,
like, after that, I kind of was hit and miss watching it, and I'm like, whatever. I mean,
At least you guys were able to watch it. I was never able to get into it. I walk out because like my mom was watching it with my sister, and I remember walking out and Floki cuts open
yeah,
a guy's stomach and then pulls out his intestines, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm going back to my room and reading now.
yeah,
yeah.
and that's so much of the entertainment or the aspect of it, and people, I think, will look at stuff like that and almost try to justify why things should be a certain way here in the modern times. And I always push back with that. I'm like, but you got to remember what society was like at the time, and how the people viewed the world at the time. And while there may be some ethics and morals that are valuable, there was a lot of, I mean, it was wartime, it was survival, it was very much different than what it is now. So don't take so much of that brutality to heart anymore. It doesn't.
I tried, but Fox can tell you I'm not the kind of person that likes that stuff.
Not for
No,
everybody.
no,
Yeah.
she's not your squeamish when it comes to that. But yeah, a lot of people will. I mean, I don't, I don't have anything against, well, LARPers. I know they're
LARPing's
um,
fun. I need to take you to
it
LARPing
it
once.
can it can be, but Han, like, if you think back to our time with Heathens of Oath and Honor, they were more LARPers than actual heathens,
Yeah, don't
which
remind me.
um, but they can be annoying sometimes. Those are the people who will scream like "Till Valhalla," and
Oh
then
yeah.
Then you haven't been
just
to the university here yet, because they have a huge LARPing community and they cover all different kinds of time period. because I remember dropping my sister off at school when she was there, and when she's getting out to go to her class, and it was at the main building at uni, people were using pool noodles as jousting swords and using Nerf guns, and it was just.
Oh wow. Yeah, because that's historically accurate. The Nerf guns, you know.
Well, they couldn't exactly
Definitely.
bring that to uni, but it was just like all of a sudden you hear like someone screaming in Elfish because you heard someone translate, because they actually had someone quote unquote as a translator saying, and so says, "On guard, you motherfucker."
Yeah, there's people really take it to the next level. You know what I mean? Like,
But it was just it was entertaining, you know. You had to pull
Yeah.
off and just watch it because
sure.
these guys were so nerdy. It was so priceless. It was like seeing Ren Fair at a uni.
Nice.
It's
But I mean,
perfect.
on the other hand, you know, just as you said, like those, well, nerds, if you will, they get lost in that world. They get lost in it so much. It's almost like they're, well, actually overtaken by the spirit of their ancestors. So maybe there is something to it. Maybe we should just all LARP.
Well, I think
I
I think
wouldn't mind it.
to some degree when like within my practices, I mean, clearly I'm wearing a linen tunic right now, and I don't wear this every single day, and I don't go out into public like this, at least not very regularly. There are times if I'm going to an event or if I'm hosting an event or I'm in between places and I'm dressing for the occasion, I will be in full ritual garb, not maybe full ritual garb, but having some more of like a time period accurate ensemble going on. And
Yeah.
what I think there's what I think that helps do for some people, myself specifically, is it puts us in a frame of mind of the moment that we're going to experience. And especially with ritual, there is that ritual theater element that really helps transform our states of mind, our frames of mind, from being in the modern time to being in ancient times, and it helps put us in that space of focus and really immersing ourselves into the actions of the things that we're about to do. So, you know, within the practice, I'm not saying that everybody should or that's what you have to do in order to experience it fully, but I think that's a definite like active component to practicing heathenry for me.
I mean, it's how the Romans and Greeks did it with their theater.
Mhm.
You know, that's how they. But yeah, just it's something that just came to mind. Like they sometimes are they look like truly possessed by them, the spirits of their ancestors, of our ancestors. So
Yeah, definitely.
I actually do that in my practice sometimes too when I'm doing it alone and Fox is asleep. I'll actually like channel my inner native because I'm Native American, so I, put a feather in my hair,
Oh yeah.
and I don't have the ritualistic garb anymore because my stupid ex decided to steal it because he thought it was cool because he wanted to claim that he was Native.
Mm.
But I put a feather in my hair, and there are times where I know this is going to sound stupid, but I take some of my makeup and I will make it look native, and I do the same thing with my Native American practices. And I have a feather that I was given, and I'm gonna get leather for it. I'm gonna bind it and make it more ritualistic for it. Sorry, I had to
Yeah.
think of the word.
Yeah. There's say I also have native ancestry on my father's side, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really like a beautiful thing when you connect with with your ancestors in that way and
Mm-hmm.
adopt some of the things that we don't necessarily know that they did for sure. Maybe we can kind of surmise or assume that they were doing these sorts of things. But when it feels right within us, I don't think that anyone is in a position to tell us that we're wrong, because it's what we feel within our hearts. It's what we feel speaking to us through that ancestral line. Within Germanic heathenry, there's that term orlog, that the thing that's passed down to us through that primal layer of existence that we all can tap into.
And that's why, I hate getting personal, but that's why Fox and I are such a good pair, is because, like, I take my Native American and my Irish, and he does his heathenry stuff, and we combine it all together. So we all are encompassing all of our ancestors.
I love that, because there's been folks that I talked to over the years who will come into a pagan practice, whether it's Germanic or different cultural beliefs, that they automatically want to go straight to the gods and the divine, and they skip over their immediate connection to, like, through ancestry. And this, I think, like what you're describing, is what I would refer to as our individual cultic practices, our hearth cults, the things that we do with our nearest and dearest, that becomes our respective traditions and customs that mean so much to us. And so your customs aren't going to be the same as mine or hers or theirs, but they are meaningful. And that's what a lot of people, I feel, need to do. They need to find what that hearth cult is for them, and they need to feed it, they need to nurture it, they need to help it grow, because it's so enriching and fulfilling.
It is, definitely. And that's why, I'm so thankful that I have a partner who not only sees, my Native culture as something new, but he encourages me to learn more about where my people have come from, what it was like back in those days. And it's just nice because, like, I don't look Native unless I dress a certain way, because of my Irish overpowered, which sucks. But, it's nice to hear that you say, do what makes your heart happy. It's so nice and refreshing to hear that. Because when I tell people I practice Native American teachings, they look at me like, but you're white.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I'm not.
Well, that's just because of that's kind of like the roll of the dice, that's the hand we get dealt, and that's how much melanin we ended up with, so I am, again, also Native, but it's so far back on the line of DNA, I guess, that the more prominent features come through are the European influences, but it doesn't take away from what is there and what has really spoken through me, with, like, the animistic side of my practices, being in nature, connecting with the spirits that are very present and very active all around us, that we deserve to interact with them, and experience their life and share in their life with us, because they've been here before we ever were, so we're just kind of like cruising through, hanging out for a bit, but they've been here longer than we have, so we almost owe it to them to be respectful and can come with a desire to reconnect and feel something through them.
It's interesting that we're talking about this, because now the thunder beings have made their presence known. There's a storm within like 5 miles of my house, and you can see all the lightning and thunder.
Nice.
So I think the old gods are with us right now.
I mean, they're
Good omen.
They're always with us. Just sometimes they're making their presence known a little more than other times. And what I have found, or Farfay, I guess what we have found in our practices, me being North Germanic, very eclectic, but more native and Egyptian aligned. They do have a lot of things in common, like the whole shamanic practice, whether you look at the Irish Druids or the Scandinavian shamans or the Native American shamans, it's all, well, pretty much the same practice, just calling on different gods, maybe same kind of energy, but slightly different gods. Although,
Mhm.
who's to say that they are actual different gods? Maybe they just present themselves different, because energy can it it doesn't have a form. It can take any form it wants. And Jesse, with being um, Germanic heathen and part native, is that something that you have seen, that you have noticed, that practices aren't really that different?
Yeah, there are definite like parallels, and I've had people ask me pretty like deep questions like that. Well, is it just one universal force that exists, and or are the gods in different cultures, are they all separate, are they all doing their own different things? And it kind of originated, that question originated from an inquiry they had, was about like the creation stories that exist
Hmm.
across many cultures. Like every culture has a creation myth. um and he's like, so what is it? Is it all just one thing and they call it differently, or are they really different? And I don't really think that there's one answer that one could come to and everyone agree on. I think it's more what you feel. But for me, I think it's everything we are part of the universe and the universe is part of us. And so we experience the energy, the powers that exist within us in different ways and at different times. So I said earlier, I'm about 8 years, close, 8 to 9 years into my practices. I didn't feel the way I feel now in my practices when I first started. I didn't even
Hmm.
feel the same way now as I did, a few years ago. It's a growth thing, and you grow and you learn and you become, it's very fluid. You can change, you can adapt, you can, employ certain aspects of animism or other natural, nature based beliefs, and then you'll learn more about that in other cultures and realize that there's really not a whole lot of difference here. There's nuances that are shared, very similar.
Yeah. The whole creation story part I have on an old blog for the Greyhorn Pagans, which is no longer in use really. I have written several creation stories, and like took a few days to write a singular story. And whether it was Celtic or Germanic or even Turkic,
Hmm.
there always seem to be some things um, that came back into the stories, whether that be water or some sort of giant dark lake, um, water birds, swans in particular, which from the top of my head is very much connected with the Anglo-Saxons, of course, but I also found them in the Turkic origin stories, which is like quite literally on opposite sides of Europe.
Right.
Like Turkey is the doorway to the Middle East and Asia, for example, but still a lot of things that overlapped, a lot of things that I saw in one story that came back into another story. And you can take it the scientific route and say, oh yeah, the Indo-Europeans, that's where it all came from. And they had one specific story, I guess, very animistic, purely
Hmm.
animistic story, and that manifested into later, Hinduism and Buddhism and the European faiths and whatever. And
Right.
sure, I guess there's something to it, but I mean, it's a good question. Like, is it just this one energy manifesting itself in so many different ways, or is it truly different? and what you said about the you said earlier about the old practices in the modern day, that is like the one question that um, that I always ask and that I keep asking, and that I'm actually writing a book about, like um, how do we keep the old practices alive, but in a modern setting? Animal sacrifices, like we can't just go out into our backyard and sacrifice a rabbit or whatever without having the cops called on us.
All right. Yeah. I don't know. I've been saying what I'm about to say now for several years, and I've been seeing it pop up more online recently, which I think is great. And I'm not the type of being that wants credit for a phrase, because I feel just
Mm.
poetry, words, inspiration comes when it needs to come, and if it inspires and it wants to be carried on by others, I don't need the credit for it. But I've been saying for a very long time is this tradition, and what tradition
Mm-hmm.
is. It is not the worship of ashes. It is the preservation of fire. And fire can it has its stages, where a fire can be raging and vibrant, and a fire can also be smoldering and just a bit of coals. And as long as there's that heat, as long as there's that breath, as long as there's that active force that keeps those embers glowing, then we are keeping those traditions alive. But the fire changes throughout its lifespan, right? Throughout its existence, and it does what it does based off of the action put into it. So if you don't tend to the fire, what does it do? It goes out, and it becomes these dead ashes that need to just go back into the earth, and that need to just be gone. And there are
Yeah.
aspects of tradition that I feel sometimes you got to rake away the coals, you got to separate that dead part and
Mm-hmm.
breathe new life into those embers to create that new flame. So how we do that, how we keep that fire alive, how we preserve that flame is going to evolve and change over time. So there are aspects of things that were done 1,000 years ago that meant a lot, that served a great purpose for that time. Those fires were vibrant at the time, and maybe now and today there are that flame has already served its purpose, and there are elements, there are aspects, there are coals of it that need to be carried from one campfire to the next campfire and revitalized and brought up in a way that is more conducive to the tribe that is trying to receive that flame's benefit, the light, the heat, everything that fire gives. um, so that's how I look at it. It's not that we're supposed to just do everything that the Saxons did, or the other Germanic tribes, or the Scandinavian heathens did exactly the way they did it. But we can look, we can get inspiration, we can take from that and see if there are any embers left worth transferring into our hearth fires and abroad, our communities, our extensions of families, our tribes, etc., and see if that benefits the group as a whole. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, that's really good. I really like that. I think that's the best and most cohesive answer I've had so far from someone.
I every now and then I get something, and it makes sense, and I just try to go with it. So it
Yeah,
happens every now
no.
and then.
Well, I mean, I'm very glad it's happening now. But yeah, that's also my point exactly. Like, we can't do the things exactly like they did them back then. We're always looking. I mean, I guess that's what you get with I don't want to say a religion, but a belief system, maybe, that is very much focused on the ancestors. You have a tendency to look into the past for what we should be doing now or in the future, but that doesn't always help, because the past is the past. Things were different, like, I mean, just over the last, what, 4 years, 3 years, maybe even, the whole world has radically shifted.
Hmm.
Like, just imagine in 300 years. So we
Oh
can
yeah.
look back and, as you said, take some embers, take some things, and see if we can apply them, see if we can breathe new life into them, but in a more modern way. I mean, doing podcasts and YouTube shows and whatever, to also in an effort to connect the tribes again.
Yep.
Even 10 years ago, that really wasn't a thing. I mean, I believe podcasting was a thing back then already, but it wasn't as widespread, and people were just still very much, well, either you were a solo practitioner or you had a coven. And I think for the more, like, witchy people, for the heathens, I think that was really about it. Like, at least when I came onto the bad, like, about the same time as you, like, there were
Hmm.
some groups that tried things, but all very, like, very Viking and not very heathen, because Vikings is always very popular. It's
Hmm.
very big in popular media, and everybody wants to be a Viking and wants to be that badass big burly dude who just goes into town and takes all the beautiful women and loot and goes back home. But
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the, like, when Vikings came out, and they're portraying the points of history very Hollywoodized, as it were, to make it more entertaining. But when they portray, the raiding aspect of the lifestyle, um, I'm like, but that's not what heathenry is about. That was just a thing that they did because they were all farmers. They were poor, and then in order to make anything of yourself, in order to do anything of whatever, you had to go somewhere else and take it from other people. And morally speaking, like, that's pretty shitty. Like,
yeah,
make your own way. Don't go and just rob somebody or raid from somebody. And but it was a period of time in history, and there was, I guess, a need or a necessity, and it's left a mark. But why do we feel the need to romanticize that and try to revive that aspect of it? It doesn't apply anymore. It's not,
no,
doesn't
but
make sense.
like, as you said, that's entertainment. Actually, my guest from yesterday, Dylan Brody, I've talked a lot with him about the entertainment industry and its portrayal of things. Like, that's what gets the viewers. That's what gets the numbers, and what sells
Of
the
course.
commercials and whatever. If you're just going to show farmers who do their thing and tend to the land and their cattle and love their wife and raise their kids, and every now and then thank the gods and bring an offering, it's like,
But where's the
yeah.
blood? Where's the violence? Where's the like,
Exactly.
where's
I
the
want to
good
see,
stuff?
I want to see Vikings. I want to see just these big men going out and taking everything because they want to.
Awkward.
Yeah. And I think that's also been a component that has slowed the progress of larger heathen gatherings and stuff, because people that may have been interested before have caught eye of the popular pop culture stuff, and have been like, well, if that's what it's about, I don't want no part of it. I don't want no part of that blood and violence and
Oh, wait till
macho.
you get here then. Everyone and their mom wants to be part of that community now. And everyone's like openly wearing pinnacles, openly wearing the Mjolnir. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, things definitely have changed, but I can imagine, if you're the first thing you see of, heathenry or Vikingry or whatever is the raiding, the raping, the blood, the guts, then yeah,
Yeah,
a
the
lot
bad
of
stuff.
people are gonna be turned off by that. Then, I mean, I myself, if it wasn't for like also like the hero aspect, the warrior aspect, and like the how the gods were also portrayed in Vikings, like that's um, what really gripped me, and the rating and all of that. Yeah, that was cool. That was really cool to see, and I bet they were incredibly smart like that. Like yeah, they were farmers, but they sure as hell weren't dumb.
Oh no.
Uh,
Well, I mean, all of the sagas are about the great deeds that so and so or these ones did to, whether it was in warfare or whether it was in reclaiming something that was stolen from them or taken from them. Heroes, that the bravado aspect of existence was a very central part of society at the time. You had to be bold to survive. So it's again, cultural society at the time was, I mean, that's what life was like.
yeah, it was a hard life, and you did what you had to do to survive. Um,
All right.
Although it's what you also see with that's I don't mind them portraying the rating and stuff, because as we're saying, that was part of it, but they didn't just burn down the whole village once they were done. If you do
No.
that, then you're gonna run out of villages to raid,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm getting tired of of that portrayal. It's like, oh yeah, they just come in, they fuck shit up, they burn down the place, and they leave again. I
That's
mean,
what they did to natives too, hun. If you remember me talking about history and stuff, they portrayed my people as like these savages that went into, people's places of living and
Mm-hmm.
scalped them and used their scalps as like warnings to other people, don't come near. I mean, yeah, there was a tribe that you didn't fudge with, but you live and you learn. I mean, Comanches were ruthless. Comanches were ruthless when it
Yeah.
came to stuff. And that's where it's like, because the Comanches did those sort of things and they went in and scalped and took women as, slaves and stuff like that. By gosh, all native tribes are the same way. And it's like, they really weren't.
No, I think every tribe under like First Nation tribes, I mean, they all had their ways of doing things, and there were warrior bands just like there were in Germanic times. I mean, like every
Mm-hmm.
culture, like the Algonquins weren't pussies or wusses in any way, but they weren't as ruthless as, like, say, like you say the Comanches or the maybe other tribes. There's one guy that I always like to glean from. Is it Tecumseh? You know what I'm talking about?
Oof, yes.
Dude was a badass,
He was
and
ruthless.
but so poetic about it. Like, you read
Mm-hmm.
some of his letters and whatnot to the to the continental invaders, if you want to call them that, the white man and stuff, and it was like so poetic the way he would just chew them apart verbally, and then figuratively and literally chew them apart. But he was something else, man, and he had a command of his people that was respect, loyalty. You
Mm-hmm.
know, those are things that have been lost in modern times now. Nobody really cares about the consequences of breaking your word. If you don't keep your promise, you don't break. If you break your oath, it's oh well, whatever. Nobody has that honor anymore. Nobody has that sense of loyalty or respect like it was even not all that long ago.
no, that's true. But look at the examples. we're given, the supposed leaders of, of our countries. Even, here
Yep.
in the Netherlands, we're a small country, and we don't care much for politics unless you get in our way. But you know, words and oaths and promises from, like I said, the people who are supposed to lead our country, supposed to represent the people, they never keep their word or
Hmm.
get back or, come back on it, or are like, oh, no, 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 no. You
But
may
what I
have
meant
heard.
was,
Yeah, exactly. You may have heard me saying this, but what I meant was this whole other thing. And
Or I
backpedal
never
on.
said that. They just took it out of context. I don't know what you're talking about.
Hmm.
yeah, or just, flat out deny, or like if they're really good at politics, they'll give you an answer without actually giving you an answer.
Sorry, guys. I'm like
Yeah.
moving around a lot because my familiar's decided she wants to be part of the show.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
Plenty of
She's more
seats
than
available.
welcome. She is more than welcome. Yeah, I'm surprised my familiar, my kitty co-host isn't. Oh, he's still outside actually. So that makes sense.
So mine's making up for it
There you
Well,
go.
good.
because she
No, but
is in a
that's
loving mood.
and I think the breaking up of the family also has a big role to play in that, because and um,
Mm.
the portrayal or well um, demonizing of being a man. All masculinity is toxic masculinity. If you're a man, you're automatically bad.
Right.
So don't listen to your dad, because toxic masculinity. He's gonna like, it doesn't matter if he's gonna raise you with like actual values that will make you a good man or whatever. Doesn't matter. We have to break up the family, and genders don't exist, and at the same time they're like 73 of them, and you can be like all three of them, or it's getting so confusing, and I think that's really hasn't helped either. Like,
Hey, boys. I know this is on the live thing, but I need to mute myself again. There's a huge storm coming in, so I guess the gods are really wanting to dump. So I'll be right back.
that's fine, baby. That's
Yeah,
fine.
sure.
Um, but I guess in that way, we're lucky that there are these heathen groups. There are people who are trying to give a good example, present the best ways of heathenry, like yourself and me. And maybe we'll not fully fix it, but we can sure try to counter it, or split
Yeah.
off even perhaps.
Yeah. No. I've always said like my way of doing things is not. I'm not positioning myself to try and convince everybody to do it my way. I share certain things about my belief, and I ramble on about it on a podcast, or I upload content that is maybe inspiring for others, and
Mhm.
if that's what it can do, then great. um but I'm not my mission, my goal is not to be like, all right guys, pay attention because this is how you're supposed to do it. Like, no, that's not the angle that I've ever taken this from.
No,
And
because that's being dogmatic. Again, that's getting up on your soapbox and just telling the people like, listen to me.
right, yeah. And there's been people that do that too, obviously we've seen it. And I think there are online personas that have ventured off into that area too, and they have a following, and so we're kind of in this virtual battle in a way to, and as a content creator yourself, I'm sure you feel, or maybe you feel a certain degree of responsibility or obligation to your fan base, to your followers, because let's face it, people that subscribe and support folks like us have questions and are looking for answers, and they will quite often take the things that folks like us say as being the right answer. So it's a tremendous responsibility of being a person of influence or having a platform to speak on things that can persuade people to think a certain way. It's a pretty heavy duty stuff to think about.
Yeah, it's a powerful position to be in. As you said, have that platform, have that voice, and I mean, honestly, yeah, I get it. I get why some people will abuse it because especially for the god of this world, money. Nobody ever has enough. So if someone offers you, I don't know, like a certain amount of money, and just if you just promote this a little more, then we'll keep paying you, and then your audience grows and you get more and more. And I get it's, but that's also going back to the whole morals and values. And
Yeah.
but it's yeah, it's hard because you don't want to lead people astray. You don't want to give the wrong answer, even though there really isn't a right or wrong answer. It is to each their own. What you just said, what works for you may not work for me. The way you think may not be the way I think. I mean, I'm seeing that even in my own tribe with Josh, Thane Josh, and very very good friend of mine, one of the tribal elders, but his view on paganism is a little different than mine. Is a little more hardcore when it comes to certain things, and I try to look at the very broad spectrum, and like also what I do on the podcast, just take everything outside of it as well and see if there are things that we have in common, things where we can weave a web on, if you will. But yeah, to have that voice, to have that platform, it can be tricky. It can be hard.
Well, yeah, especially when you have like a situation like I think you're describing. You have your online podcasting and social media
Hmm.
persona, and then you have the Stein of the tribe persona. You are who you are with your tribe differently than who you are when you're presenting yourself to an audience like this, the same way as me. And there's that's okay, because everybody gets this different version of ourselves, and like my wife gets a version of me that nobody else gets, and my tribe
I
gets a
I
version
would
of
hope
me that
so.
the online right, yeah, I mean, definitely to some physical aspects for sure, but I mean, just
Hmm.
even in the day-to-day interactions with one another, my tribe, it gets a version of me that my audience online doesn't get, right? And we have a model or a custom or traditions that our tribe follows that is secular to us and is unique to us, and that's how it's going to stay. And it doesn't get shared with the whole world because we want to protect and preserve what we've built that is ours and keep it safe. You know what I mean? It's to a degree it's gatekeeping, but for the right reasons. It's to protect that sacred thing that we've built from being
Well,
destroyed from without.
I wouldn't call it gatekeeping. I would call it preservation. It's
Right.
it's
Gatekeeping has negative connotations added to it a lot
yeah,
of times. So
unfortunately, but I understand. There, uh, even if you don't know it, even if you don't notice it, you're always wearing a different mask, if you will. Like Firefly definitely doesn't get the same stein that the tribe gets. And online, I mean, I try to you know very cheesy, but be myself. Don't
be
really
genuine.
portray. Yeah, be genuine. Exactly.
Well, you're not
don't.
exactly going to be your romantic, loving, caring
No, because
fiance
then.
that I know, because then everyone would be like, dude, what are you doing?
I mean, I can
I
do
mean, I
that,
know the
but
boys would be appreciative. They'd be like, oh, but no, in actuality, it's true. It's even with me, where, I'm a mom first, always. I'm a mom first. And
yeah,
that's the thing, too, where the tribe doesn't see me as a mom. They see me as the mom and the fruit of the group, but it's
yeah, okay,
different when it comes to my son.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's like, you know, that's the thing too, where it's like in real person, like Fox can tell you, I am the most painfully awkward, shy person that you'll ever meet. Like he'll sit there and talk to me, and I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm looking around my surroundings. But then, like when I'm on the podcast with him doing co-hosting, you guys get that side of me where I'm talking, I'm engaging, I'm doing this and that. I'm not just, my wallflower twiddling my thumbs, wondering
Yeah.
where the nearest exit is. And
yeah.
that's the same thing with work too. Your work, people see a certain side of you that you're not outside of work. Like with me, I'm very professional, I'm very kind, I'm very sweet. Everyone considers me quote unquote work mom or sister or daughter. And when I'm home and then I go into my workplace and I'm, myself on the other days that I'm not at work, everyone's like, Fire
Well,
Faye?
you have a we have there's a term, and Stein, you probably know this, and maybe you do too, but Hammer. Everybody's Hammer. We shift. Our
Mm-hmm.
skins change, right? And
Yeah.
we shift when we need to, or so the Hammer, that part of our soul, or the part of our self, right? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
multifaceted. It's a pretty
Mhm.
complex existence in terms of our, like, the Germanic beliefs of the self. But the Hammer is it changes, and not everybody is going to see that skin that you put on for as the mom than you would as, someone of the
You're
tribe, or as co-host of a podcast, or a co-worker, or an employee, and all that
But
stuff, right?
it's funny because like when I do go into work, I'm wearing black skinny jeans and my black shoes and a band t-shirt that I
Hmm.
used to have, and I have really dark makeup, and everyone's like, Fire Faye? It's like, hi.
Is that you?
I mean, it's interesting because like when I at my old job, I did the same thing where I went to go see my residents and my adopted grandparents. And I dressed like how I normally do out in public, and they looked at me like
What's
like
going on? Are
they
you okay?
like they literally would sit down their coffee and look at me, and they're like,
Like, blink twice if you need help, kind of.
basically, and
something,
it's just
something like that. Yeah.
well, and it was funny because like I went to go see him, and there are times I'm not committed to piercing my nose, so I have a ring. I don't know where it is, but I have a ring that I put in my nose, as a septum or a side or a lip. And I
I
went
never
in and
saw
I
that.
had it. I've lost it, dear.
Oh.
But I went in and I had it, and they looked at me like,
Yeah, it can be a shock.
huh? And that's where I've done it to work too. And people are just like,
Yeah, they
Yeah.
don't know how to react. It's a shock. It is. It's
they ask me if I have a twin because I go into work the next day and they're like, did you come into the store? Yeah.
I've actually experienced with my own blood family a first of all, they've always adhered and maintained their devotion to Christianity. So when I jumped into paganism, when they
Mm-hmm.
discovered that, when they found that out, that was like a huge, like, what, right? And
That
then
was mine too.
when they started seeing what I was doing online, that really they really lost it at that point, because they were like, you're possessed, because I would take pictures in, whether it was face paint or ritual garb. And let's be honest, some of the to whatever degree we want to adorn ourselves, when we enter that ritual state, it can be quite frightening to some people. I mean, just being honest, like people, we can look scary, and
And that's
so
why I keep myself anonymous, is because I have family and like they live up the street,
You're so
literally,
scary.
or down or right across the street. I mean, I have family like within this area, so like me going, doing rituals with the moon and bringing out my tarot cards and my all of my stuff there, like,
yeah, it would definitely, like it did for my family. Like, I literally was told not to come around them for years because of they thought I was possessed, and I'm like, hold on, I was just up there with you guys like a month or so ago, or last year, having dinner, hanging out, talking, helping, this and that. I'm like, I'm still the same person. What you see there is just a version of me for a specific thing, or it's for the entertainment, like you were talking about before, how things get done in a way to be entertaining and to because so much of what we're doing on social media now, it's not just audio listening, it's what can people see and experience through their eyes and absorb through their eyes. And when it's visually appealing or interesting, that that creates engagement. And so as a creator, like, you're thinking of things along those lines to engage your fan base. And but from the family side, they're looking at you going, you need some help, buddy, and I'm like, maybe yes, but I'm okay, really. I'm truly okay. But okay for me,
so
maybe
much
not
like
okay
my
to you.
aunt. It sounds like my aunt to my mom, because like I forgot that I had my pinnacle on the other day, because like sometimes I just wear it at home, and I was wearing it and it fell out of my shirt, and the look on her face, like, my aunt, she looks more native than I am, because she is a lot more than I am. And it fell out of my shirt, and then my Eye of Horus fell out. And the look on her face, I thought I was going to die, because I'm trying not to laugh, because like she's tan, and then all of a sudden she's white like me, and I'm trying not to laugh, because I was just like, I can't be rude, I can't be disrespectful. And I'm like, yes. She's like, why are you wearing a satanic pinnacle around your neck?
Yeah, they always want to associate certain symbols with things that they aren't necessarily associated with, just because of, again,
So
misinformation, whatever.
yeah, and I was just like, I took the back of my shirt, I was like, it's nothing, don't worry about it. And then I get home and my mom's like, why did you wear that over there? I was like, I forgot I had it on. And she's like, well, now your aunt wants to perform an exorcism.
Oh God. Okay.
Oh my gosh. So it's like, that's where it's like I have to hide my identity, because like Fox knows, I am very secretive about who I am until I'm able to get over there, because
Yeah.
there are so many people here in my life that if they found out what I'm doing with Fox, and finding out that I'm doing pagan stuff and stuff like that, would be like, she needs Jesus.
I can definitely relate, because I never told my family what I was doing freely. I was just flat out asked, and I didn't want to lie. But it wasn't until I was asked that I had to be like, well, truth be told, here it is, right?
Well, they couldn't
And
even accept my sexuality, so that's why I keep myself hidden.
yeah, it's a big thing too these days, and I just want people to be happy, and as long as it doesn't hurt the next person, then I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, I don't look at it as a way, as like, hey, that's what people, how people want to express themselves, live in their lives, is none of my business. It's not my hall, not my call. And as long as it's not hurting me or mine, rock on with it. I don't care.
Well, it took Fox a minute to understand what demisexuality was, and it took him a minute to understand that, this is who I am, and this is basically what you get. And it's, there are times where he just doesn't understand it, because, like he said, there's X, Y, and Z with, the community. And that's what I love about our partnership, is like, if he has a question on it, he'll come to me and be like, hey, such and such, and then I'll explain it, and he'll be like, oh, because back in the day, because you're probably about our age, the community used to just be LGBT.
Mhm.
It wasn't XYZ.
Right.
And
Yeah, the
so
the whole alphabet got involved now somehow. Even like
mhm.
now, there's a plus, and like
It's
I
plus
believe
because the thing is they're not going to
I've seen
go and
I've
do.
seen an exclamation mark somewhere, or
Honey, the reason why the plus is there is because they don't want to extend it further than it needs to be, because it's already confusing enough as it is it's LGBTQIA plus, because it's including everything. It's
It's almost like
including.
a. I don't mean to like. Please understand, I'm coming to this just as in lightheartedness, but it's almost like being on Wheel of Fortune. I'd like to buy a vowel.
yeah,
Basically.
Get a
I mean,
consonant,
the thing
solve the
is,
puzzle.
with me, I don't care. Like, like he'll come to me and be like, hey, this. But there are times where, there's stuff that I've been reading that really frustrates me as even a person of the community, because it's like,
Oh yeah.
you're giving us a bad rep, guys. We used to be this quiet, stoic group, and now it's like, feel my wrath if you don't accept me for who I am. And it's like,
well, imagine how
oh,
us pagans feel, honey.
yeah.
Especially this is very much an American thing. It didn't really have its effects here in Europe, but the whole January 6th thing with the Q shaman and whatever. Like,
Oh,
hon,
don't remind me of that fool.
Oh yeah.
oh God, I don't know, hon. I don't know if you remember that, but that
That
was
was a
I
big.
do.
That was a big one.
we were still aligned with Heathens of Oath and Honor back then,
Mm-hmm.
and we had to go on like the Rolling Stone article, Instagram, Facebook, every freaking platform that we could go on to first of all correct the assumption that they made with the tattoo on his chest with
The Volknut.
the
Hmm.
Valknut, indeed, with it being the pedo symbol and whatever. And it's like, ho, 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 hold up.
Yeah.
That's vastly different. Second of all, he's not with us.
Right.
Like he
We don't
We
may
don't
claim that.
be.
claim him.
We
The
don't
natives
claim
don't
that.
claim him.
Oh
Nobody.
no, he can. He can be on his own. He can do his thing. Rate whatever the fuck you want. Just don't pretend like you're one of us.
Yeah.
That
Sorry,
was a
my
whole
familiar says
thing.
hello.
That was a whole thing, and that might also have been a little bit of a setback for the pagan community because shaman, and you see someone with the Volknut, and they're like, hey, wait, didn't that guy from Dan also had that? Huh?
Yeah.
I
Well,
hate to burst this
symbology.
little bubble. He's actually released from prison now.
Well,
Oh, uh,
symbology though, in general, tends to be a big topic because that's not the only symbol that is whether it's particularly pagan in origin or whether it's old or how old it might be. I mean, we can go about talking into the origins of the Volknut versus other pagan symbols and where we actually see it in historical or archaeological texts or sources. But the symbology aspect of things is there have been symbols throughout history that are way older than what people associate them with now and today. But because a terrible group of people appropriated that symbol and its meaning
Mhm.
and used it to push an agenda or whatever, that's what sticks in people's minds, unfortunately.
yeah.
And that's
So
why natives don't even use that symbol anymore, because of what happened in that time period.
yeah, and
They've
I
actually wiped it completely from all history.
and
Which
I've
is such
actually
a shame. It's such a powerful symbol.
I've talked to people about that too, and if you actually look at the percentage of the population of the world, I mean, we're at like what, like some close to 8 billion people in the world.
Yeah, just about.
The percentage of people who associate the sun wheel symbol, like we're talking about them, I'm gonna assume that's what we're referring to, right? But the swastika, the sun wheel, that symbol, the percentage of people that associate that with World War Nazi Germany is much smaller than compared to the overall population of the world. So, but because it's such a heavy, weighty, terrible thing that happened in the history of the world, again, that's what echoes louder than the truth.
And it's a
It's
band-aid
the same way with the
that get
pinnacle too.
Yep.
Yeah, that's all that's been heavily appropriated or misappropriated as well. Same with the I think it's so funny. Speaking of symbols, the upside down cross, for example. The
Evil eye
crucifix,
too.
but
Evil eye too.
it's just. But the crucifix, but turned upside down. Like, ooh, that's now all satanic and whatever. I mean, I guess nowadays everything is satanic. Like, doesn't
They do
matter
the
what it
same
is,
thing with
it's
the evil
satanic.
eye too, honey. They do the same thing with the evil eye, the Hosma
Yeah.
hand. They've turned it evil.
They think this is satanic. I'm like, we didn't have Satan in our belief systems. The Germanics, there was no Satan.
No.
So
I mean, we had some we had some bad guys. We had some have some entities that are less liked, but
that's how it is in Egyptian too.
Yeah, the Eye of
Set.
Horus, the Eye of Sets, yeah.
And that's the thing too, where it's like, that's why when Fox and I first got together and he started talking about the sun wheel, I was like, oh great, here we go. I'm gonna hear all about all this and that. But like, the more I learned about like different symbologies and stuff like that, it's just amazing how much you can learn about things with that kind of stuff.
It is. Symbology, symbolism, just you can learn so much about our world basically by just learning the symbols.
And taking it from a, or at least for me, it's taking it from a perspective of raising awareness and bringing the actual truth of it. Because sure, we may not be saying, well, you have to believe this to be the right way. It's do it this way. Again, the whole dogma aspect of it, it's do this because it's the only right way. Like, that's not what we're saying. Is what we're saying is that what factual truth is, what this actually means is, and then we present it, right? We see this as fact, as unequivocal truth. It's not an opinion. It's not what some subset of idiots at one point in history decided to yoink it from history and use it for less than favorable things. But hey, guys, you should be aware. You should know your history. You should know what the truth is. And so much of history gets I don't want to say like misrepresented, but there's bias that exists in history too. So you got to be careful with that as well.
Yeah, that's
especially modern history. I mean, I don't think people much had a big agenda for things back in the day, but more or less, more modern history is, there's so many rabbit holes you can go down to see, well, why did so and so say what they said? That is now part of historical source. Well, why did they say what they said? And you go back further and you dig into some more stuff and you realize, oh, well, they said it because they had this ulterior motive or this agenda behind them. And so it's almost a full-time pursuit to keep it unbiased.
It is. I mean, you can try as hard as you want. You can try. It's one of the things that comes with having a tribe with running a tribe. People will come in and use those symbols, or other people see you use that symbol and it's like, oh, but don't you know that's bad because such and such used it, or a phrase that's quite meaningless just gets appropriated and people are like, oh, because that person was bad, now you are bad too. And because I'm lucky that I haven't got canceled yet, knock on wood, I guess. But because here on on the podcast and in the tribe. You know, I'm just our policy is say whatever you want, say however you want it. Like there's no need for censorship. There's no need for self censorship. If you like want to tread carefully, tread carefully. If you want to be blunt, be blunt. That's fine.
Yeah.
That can rub people the wrong way, you know, because I've always had a tendency. Unfortunately, Firefay, her battery died, so she's off. But she could definitely tell you as well that I don't hold back. I you know, speak first and then maybe sometimes, hopefully later, realize what I actually said. Isn't it has caused me trouble, unfortunately, more than once that I, you know, speak my mind first and then I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Should I?
Yeah.
Um,
We've all been there, you know. I've had guests on my show in the past that at the time was like very, very well received, and it was a very positive interaction, and it was enjoyable for not just myself and my guests, but also for the audience that absorbed it. And
mhm.
then in a short period of time thereafter, that particular guest allowed their true colors to shine through on their
Oh,
social media, and it became this sort of thing where I had to do almost like a press conference release where I'm like, guys, let's just clear the air. You know, had I known, had this thing been revealed prior, this was definitely not be something that I would have wanted to been associated with in any way. And having been
yeah,
associated with it in the past does not reflect that I am aligning with their views on things, because I don't. And it was like damage control at that point. So we've all been there, you know, like
yeah,
hindsight is 2020, as they say, and you react or you respond to things in the moment because you're convicted of it and you feel that it's an important topic to be vocal about, and then other things come out. It's territory to tread very carefully through, and it's a
yeah,
you
yeah.
almost
Because
you're gonna slip up sometimes, and it happens.
having to make those apology videos, you know, like you said, almost a press conference, you know, desk and microphones and
Right.
the
Answer questions and respond to
crowd,
reactions, and
a whole angry crowd with torches and pitchforks, and
yeah.
yeah, no, that's it's
It's kind of what
it's
we sign
tricky.
up for without even knowing we signed up for it when we do stuff like this. It's
Yeah,
almost like an
yeah,
unwritten part of it.
especially nowadays when people their attention span have just become so short that they'll take a 10-second clip of something and which you know can mean anything. It can be about anything,
Yep.
but they'll give it a certain meaning and
Out of
you know
context.
yeah,
Yep.
and then you know once that has blown up, as you said, you know try and do damage control. If it's blown up already, if it's out there, then you know you're not going to get that genie back in the bottle.
One of the ways I've found that helps with reducing that kind of time, because it's exhausting. If you've done it, I know I've done it. If you've had to go into that sort of realm and again play the devil's advocate, be damage control, press conference type stuff, it's
Mhm.
exhausting. It's not fun, and nobody wants to find themselves in that position. So what I found that has helped me is really just pick your battles and know your place, and stay in the lane that you are more comfortable in. It's okay to branch off, and it's okay to maybe get off of an exit and go down some back roads and explore a bit. But so much of what I've learned from this is if you start trying to perform brain surgery after just reading a couple of Google articles, you're gonna have a problem, man. Like you're not
Yeah,
qualified.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So stay out of the places that you just aren't really have no business being in, and stick with what is genuine, and what people respond to you with, positively, and be genuine in that endeavor. That's what's helped me. Um,
So, but So basically, taking it very politically in a way. Like, do
Tactically, you know.
sure, yeah, make your apology, make your case, leave it at that. Don't if you're gonna have to react and make a reaction video or a reaction comment to everyone who is reacting to it, man, that's a full-time job. That's two full-time jobs, and you're not
Yeah,
gonna be happy doing that.
right.
But yeah, as you said, it's one of the things you sign up for when you decide, hey, I wanna have a platform. I wanna do podcasts, videos, whatever, blogs.
Yeah,
As a content creator, big or small, you're gonna run into these things, and you need a you need a thick skin to be
yes.
able to do this. Because I've definitely had live shows with an open invitation where people will come in just to mess with you, just
Oh,
to mess with the show, mess with the content. It's like, no, 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 you can trust me, you can trust me. I'm not gonna do anything, and I'm just looking around like,
yeah,
shall I try? And they come in and just either start spouting, well, words that'll get you canceled on YouTube, that's for sure,
hmm,
or or they coming to the tribe and start posting certain images, and they're like, whoa, 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 hey, hey,
yeah,
hold up, nope, nope.
yeah,
It's well, that's yeah, it's one of the dangers of the internet as well. Everyone can be whoever they choose to be, which is can be a good thing, can be damaging as well. And I guess in that way, I do kind of envy your ancestors. They didn't have to deal with that shit. If there was some imposter in town, they just kick him out, and that's that.
yeah, yeah. We're definitely have a more complex setup these days, because we interact with people in so many different forms. It's not just going to your neighbor, the next hut over, or the next village over, and seeing them for a meal, or seeing them in the market, or whatever anymore. Like that's all it ever was personal interpersonal relationships. And now, like you say, anybody can be anyone that they want to be over long distance, and portray how they want to be portrayed, and with little to no consequences when things go either awry, or noise gets made. And what's going to happen? They'll block you, or they'll delete their account. They'll create a new one. There's no real tangible consequences to people's actions. And that's one of the things about just modern society that I've kind of been a little dismayed about, is the integrity of people. Their honor is not something that they hold up to any degree of a standard, really.
No, especially when like us, you're in a community um, who still values honor, who's all about honor and keeping your oath and keeping your worth and your word. And then looking outside of you, and nobody does it. Nobody cares even. They'll call you any name under the sun, and yeah, block you, delete your account because there are no consequences. Like, what are you gonna do? Find them, kick
Right,
their ass, then what? And you're gonna be the one hauled off,
right.
and they're just gonna be laughing. You know, I guess.
I've experienced some pretty egregious long distance attacks. Like I've been swatted. I don't know if you know what that is,
Yeah.
but
Oh shit.
I've been swatted twice on live streams before,
Oh
and it was
wow.
in like the early days of my channel. And I'm like, what is going on here? Like, why? Who am I, first of all, to be a target for something, and then just realizing really no there's there was virtually nothing that could have been done about it. Um, I am
Yeah.
it didn't achieve the result that they were looking for. Maybe it did in the moment, but for the long term, it was like, joke's on you, man. I'm still here. But
Oh, but
stuff like that, it's crazy,
that's
man. What people are willing
that's
to go through.
that's some serious shit. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, and that's especially when it's like you said in the early days of your channel. That is so disheartening that people right away are start doing those things. And
right.
why? Not really, not because of any particular reason, but that they want to, and that it's entertaining for them,
Yep.
which
Yep.
is yeah. So guess we'll
Wild.
just that's why we have to make a effort to connect the tribes and find our people. There are enough things to there are already enough people, enough groups who just are out to spread hate, to
Yeah.
to um well, like Chalavash Josh said, to shatter the community and shatter the groups and shatter the tribes. And that's why it's so important. And that's why myself, and I know several other tribal leaders who try that as well, to keep the tribes connected, because we only have each other.
hmm Do you,
And sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you have like is in the Netherlands where you are? Is it a pretty wholesome, like personal groups of people out there nearby you to share space
um
and time with?
I've been trying to bring it from the online world into the real world, but that's a lot harder than you would think. But I've been trying some things. I've been connecting with people, so slowly but surely I am bringing it into the outside world
Yeah.
as well. Um, Here in the Netherlands, yeah, like I always say, we're a sober folk. We don't really like to make waves. We're not that brash. We're not that loud. We just we do our thing,
Mm,
and that's it. So a lot of pagans, a lot of heathens will, they don't jump out of the woodworks and be like, "Hey, I'm here too. Look at my hammer. I'm with you." Unfortunately, it'd be be cool if they did, but then at least I'd recognize them. But so far, I know of one other um, Dutch content creator, Dutch pagan content creator, and I have through a friend of mine, I've actually come into contact with. Um, well, he's basically still a kid. I believe he's like 20 years old,
mm,
who is new to the path. Actually, just discovered it a few months ago. I believe he's not even a year into it, and he's been looking for guidance. He's been looking for info. So I'm trying to connect with him as
right.
well, but which is a task on its own. Like, how do you guide someone who's new? Like, how do you present everything
I
that
know, right?
already, that you're just like, oh yeah, that's that, and they're just like, okay, but why?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
do you mean? But why? It's how it is. Okay, but why?
There's so
Yeah.
there's so much, for me too, is there's so much that I've accumulated over literally the years, and not just within like heathenry, but just life experiences
Yeah.
that we can place uh into our religious or spiritual practices. Just the being alive in Midgard for as long as we have, right, and experiencing the world as we have, and just those life lessons. uh when I get asked these questions sometimes, and they're like, "Well, here's a simple question," and then they'll go and they'll ask, and I'm like, "But is it really that simple? Because how do I answer what you're asking me? Because my answer is going to be the result of a lifetime of experiences and years of learning, and I'm still learning. Like it never ends. We're always
Sure.
learning. I feel like
Yeah.
it's always the student, never the master kind of thing.
Mm,
So to be in a position though where you have some tenure and have experience, and people look to us as a source for knowledge or learning. Again, it goes back to that whole responsibility thing we talked about earlier. Is especially when it's an interpersonal type of a relationship, you know, because now you're entering the scope of tying weird with someone, establishing maybe frith with them, because it's all those things you can't do long distance. You have to be with someone in person to do those things. And now you're really getting into the meat and potatoes, as I like to say, of what heathenry is about. It's this is where it's at. It's at the boots on the ground, when your feet are on the ground, grassroots level type of thing. And it carries with it a whole extra level of responsibility.
yeah. But
And you can
I
learn
mean,
from
it's
others too. I mean, we learn from each other. It's not that I can that I won't learn from somebody who has less miles under their tires than I do, because I take knowledge and I learn from wherever I can. Wisdom is wisdom from wherever it comes, I think is
true.
a saga quote from the Bandamaga saga. Is wisdom from wherever it arrives or wherever it comes, right? And it's true. It's very true. You can learn from
And
anything.
definitely. And sometimes, a fresh pair of eyes can, they can see things vastly different. I over the last couple of shows that I did, I've had ask questions and people give me a reaction. And I'm like, hey, this is, I never thought about it
I
in
never thought
that
of it
way,
that way.
but
Yeah.
that's, yeah, I always, thought something similar, but you gave it a different spin. And yeah, just, when you think like you have the answer, like you kind of know what the answer will be, and then there's a whole new spin to it, because literally their brain works different. They have different experience, lived a different life, and will come to a different conclusion. And
Hmm.
whether they be like that kid, like 20 years old, or some old guy who's in his 70s. It's fascinating how different, but also how very much the same things can be.
Yep. I've had a guest on my show a few times, not on the podcast, but on like live streams on my channel.
Mhm.
And this individual, when I first became associated with them, he was 12 years old, and he's like now in his, like 14, 15, he's a teenager now.
Mhm.
But like when I first came into contact with them, I'm like, well, here's a whole different dynamic now, because it's you're speaking with someone who has, parents that you need to work through before you can even
Yeah.
appropriately contact them and have them on shows or whatever. So like there's that. But then like listening to this individual, hearing what they had to say, how they've accumulated knowledge through academic works and just their life experiences, I'm like, this kid's brain is decades ahead of what the numbers of his age reflect, and I
Yeah.
was sitting there just like my mind was blown listening to how topics of philosophy and worldviews and you know spiritual or religious forces and things. I'm like, man, if I wasn't thinking about stuff like this when I was his age, man. I'm like, what's going on with the youth in these days? Like, is this what it's like out here now, where they're just like decades ahead of themselves on stuff? I'm like, man, you need to slow down, because you got a whole life ahead of you, and just wait till you actually experience some of these things. You got a good advancement on it now with
Yeah.
mentally,
Well,
but boy, oh boy.
that's crazy. 12 years old, like still.
Yeah, I'm learning from
knows-
him. Like he's teaching me
Man,
stuff. I'm like, damn, you want to take over now, man? Like,
Man, when I was 12 years old, like the things I occupied myself with was surviving school and playing RuneScape.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't very brainy in terms of like the philosophy aspect of things. I enjoyed certain parts of schoolwork and academic learning, but I
Mhm.
was more like, when can I get out into the woods? When can I go fishing? When can I go hiking? When can I go just play? Just be a kid.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's over here like talking about like Jungian philosophy and stuff that's like,
Wow.
yeah, like college level or graduate level university type stuff. I'm like, hold on, what?
Dude, those are things that I am just now getting into, and I'm
Exactly.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm 31 years old, and I'm only now starting to kind of get into Nietzsche and Jung and all of
Right.
that.
Right.
At 12 years old, damn.
Yeah. He was just like reading stuff, and I'm like asking me if I've heard about this theory, that theory, and I'm like, the what now? I mean, nope. But it was. It
That's
made for some interesting dialogue and
I bet.
put things in perspective. I'm like, that's if there's this, if he's one of, got to be more. He can't be the only one out there that are
I would
thinking
hope
this
so.
way.
I
Yeah.
would I would I would definitely hope so, because there is there is some promising youth left. There are some people left who can make this world a better place, who will make this world a better place. It's just
Hmm.
they seem to be few and far between, and also so vastly spread. But I guess it's with a same with a web. You have a few points where everything connects, and then just threads running and a lot of open
Right.
space. And sometimes I do wish people were a little closer, or just in Europe instead of always in the US. But US, and I guess things are a little easier there. I don't know, but I'm very happy to actually be meeting up with a fellow podcaster and spiritual aligned individual in the UK come September, and I still need to make my way over to the US again, because the whole tribe, and especially the tribal elders and Fire Fae, of course, is bugging me to come over again. It's like, so when are you gonna come over? When are you gonna be here? Because it's about time we have a thing tight, like with
Yeah.
all of us. And it's like, I mean, I have time. I can make time. That's not the issue. It's the travel. Like, I
Oh yeah.
don't. Oh,
Have you been
it's
to
so
the US
hard.
before?
Once to visit Firefay, of course. That was quite a trip. 15-hour flight.
Hmm.
Um,
Did you like
basically,
the did you like the country? Did it treat you well? Did you enjoy the experience?
I did. I did. It's vastly different from Europe, I gotta say.
Yeah.
Always hearing about the US, and like hearing about how it's like over there, but then actually being there, it's different. It's very different. Like, you go there with, or I went there with, a European mindset, like, oh, it's all good, it's fine, and whatever. And the Americans, yeah, they may be a little odd, but they mean well. And like, oh, I'll just walk to the supermarket, because that's what we do here. I mean, hell, where I do my groceries, it's a 3-minute walk.
Wow.
Not doing that again. That was a 45-minute walk to the nearest
and
supermarket.
you take your life in your hands, man. It's like all the traffic everywhere, for
Yeah,
a lot of
like,
places, So
no real proper sidewalks. It's just
no.
slabs of concrete, and that's it.
I've never traveled to
Yeah.
Europe. I want to. I want to do a European tour one day, or when I say one day, but like at some point in my life, I would love to tour Europe. But I've heard so many wonderful stories. I guess it's kind of similar in mirroring the what
Yeah,
you hear in the U.S. being from the Netherlands, and then us in the U.S. and having never traveled abroad, hearing and seeing things. I'm like, oh man, it would be so nice to be there or whatever. Nowhere's perfect. Every place has its vices, but there's
for
definitely
sure.
places and time I want to spend just traveling and experiencing it. Like as you do. You're one of my jobs in here for about I guess it was maybe 5 or so years, 4 or 5 years. I would travel the United States, and I've been to literally every state of the 50 of the United States except for two
Hmm.
or three,
Oh
including
wow.
Hawaii. Like I've been to Hawaii, so there's like traveling and seeing even how much different people are in our own country. Because people in
Uh-huh.
the South are different than people in the North, which are different from people in the Midwest, which are different from people on the Pacific Northwest. Like everybody has their way of just being who they are, and so seeing the cultural differences within our own country was a big thing for me to become who I am. I'm like, now I want to see more. I want to see everywhere else or other places too. And I think it's whenever you're able to, people that are able to travel and experience other cultures, you become educated, you become learned about them, and
Yeah,
it's a good experience, I think, to be able to do that.
that's for sure. And um, I I I do recommend traveling. I have been fortunate to have traveled a lot already with my parents. Like every summer, we'd go somewhere different. I've been to China, I've been to Jordan, I've been to Egypt, I've been to
Wow.
so many European countries. So I have been fortunate in that way, and it broadens your view. It broadens your perspective on things. And
Oh yeah. There's
um, sorry, go ahead.
now I was gonna just say like the people that only stay in their small hometown and never leave. They're born there, they live there, they work there, go to school, raise a family, and die there. Uh, it's like I feel bad in a way, like you're missing out on so much.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I get it's comfortable.
Right.
That's you
Teach their
don't
own.
have to you don't have to go outside of your comfort zone. You don't have to get to know new things, learn to know new people and whatever. But it's a lot more fun if you do.
Mm.
It's it, like I said, it broadens your perspective.
Yeah.
A couple of questions that Charles Ash really wants to uh, wants to talk about. I mean, I can just as easily
Yeah,
bring
for sure.
him in though. But a lot of it's a big thing in the Pagan community, of course. The need for being self-sustained. As we talked about at the beginning, we always were farmers. Like, do you do any of that? Like, do you have your like a vegetable garden, or you collect rainwater? Because or that's illegal in the U.S., right? Collecting rainwater. Or
Yeah, I guess by the books they say you're not supposed to. Yeah. But I know people that do, and But in terms of, yeah, I don't currently have a vegetable garden. My father-in-law does, and my father-in-law lives just a couple of doors down from where my wife and I live. We live in the same neighborhood, and we can literally just walk right down to their house. They can walk to us. We see them every day, and he has his like tomatoes and um, some cucumbers or squash, I think. But I have in the past grown my own food. And I actually, when I was young, before I moved to Tennessee, I worked on a farm for over a decade, a cattle farm. We raised beef cattle. We
Nice.
had a big garden. Almost everybody, and again, this goes back to like the church Christian group that I was raised in. But interestingly enough, while it was definitely a Christian focused belief system and non-denominational, so it wasn't like it didn't have an ism at the end of it. It wasn't baptism, it wasn't Pentecostalism, it wasn't whatever Catholicism. It was just the non-denominational Christian ideals. The community that was fostered over the years became very tribal in its living. So almost everybody had vegetable gardens in their yards. Plus, there was a community garden that people who had the land to facilitate such a size thing, people would everybody's hands were in it to, if you had time, go in there and weed the garden, go out there and pick the peas, go in there and shuck some corn or whatever. So there was a lot of that going on that I grew up in and learned a lot about in my early youth. So we had to slaughter our own cattle, we had to cut down our own hay, we had to cut our own wood for fuel. Like there was a lot of that farmsteading or homesteading lifestyle that we see so vibrantly advocated in heathen communities that I was raised in and grew up around. So maybe not so much recently, just because of where I live, there's kind of limited space. But we have a small enough yard or garden, if we want to call it that. I think you guys in Europe, you call it like your lawns, your garden, you call them gardens, right? Or is that just
yeah?
So like our yard, our yard is not, it's not cultivated to grow anything, at least not this year, but it has been in the past. We had a small, like I had peppers and tomatoes, so I've done it in the past, just not very recently.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's something that's, well, with the collapse of the system and with how much of our food really isn't food, all lab grown, lab made. It's become really, really important. I mean, I'm lucky enough to live in the city and have a small garden, small backyard. But I'm like, everybody is telling me, including including my dad's telling me, like, if you want a vegetable garden, just do one, just make one. You know, you
didn't
have
take a whole lot of
space. No, but it's, I don't know, living in the city, living in a rental apartment, I'm still kind of figuring out, like, would it really be worth it? And
I know people too who have like similar living situations where either they rent a space or they have little to no soil that outside that they could grow in. People, I know plenty of people who do like small pots of things, like a tomato pot or peas or green beans or peppers or things. So they adapt, I should say, to the conditions where they live, and they make it work. Herbs are another great thing because they don't take up a whole lot of space, so you can do like small pots or boxes for such things.
I can do pots. Yeah. Those, that kind of, okay. Yeah. Well, Josh, welcome.
What I was going on about more is in America, they've taken a lot of our rights to self-sustain away without actually touching the pagan faith itself. They've beat all of our self-sustaining rights out and made it almost virtually impossible to create self-sustaining communities. They've devoured our funerary rights. I mean, we can't have sacred groves. We can't have pyres in a sacred grove. We can't have water burials. We can't have pyres at water. We can't do any of our normal burial rites. As far as homesteading, they've stopped us from collecting electric in most states in any fashion. You can't live completely off grid in most U.S. states right now. I think it's like 29. and you have to be tied in some way to the power grid, right? And in doing that, you're basically selling them your electric and being charged by them to have a meter hooked up to your house, instead of having a battery wall and storing your power that you make either with wind or solar or hydroelectric, if you have a stream in your yard or whatever the case may be. They've just banned that. They've banned collecting rainwater for various reasons. And for some reasons I can understand it, but if it's done for watering agriculture and farm animals, then what does that matter? And you know what I mean? And like,
Right.
there's a lot of things that they've just beaten away that have destroyed the ability to even create a new tribal culture. Yet the Native Americans were given express right to do exactly that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not contesting any of that, Josh. And there's plenty of people I know who do what they can to the degree that they're able to.
And that's the hard part, man, is knowing what's legal between the state, the federal, and then your local guidelines, what you're allowed to do. It's become almost impossible.
Yeah, it's very challenging. And that's, I can grow a garden in my yard. I can have vegetables. The community where I live is small enough where if I wanted to collect rainwater, I guess I could. Nobody would report it or whatever. But knowing the ridiculous guidelines that are in place preventing such things, you got to weigh it out and go, well,
Well, 2 years ago, we were told we couldn't have roosters in the neighborhood. Now I get that. Okay, we live in a neighborhood, so no roosters. No big deal. Then they
roosters
come in a year later.
Anyway.
Yeah, then they come in later and then say no chickens either. And it's like, come on, man. Really? I got 6 chickens in a hen house out back making eggs. They ain't hurting nobody and they make no noise.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, just come over to the Netherlands. We don't have laws like that, and there is,
Soon enough, we're going to not be living in the neighborhood. We'll be out west again of, what we call out west of 95, and that's kind of where you can just do whatever you want, out your back door, and nobody really cares. It's the living in the neighborhood that we're kind of constrained in right now. It didn't used to be that way. It was like at this neighborhood, every other lot was woods.
Cities and suburbs have become so overpopulated.
Mm-hmm.
Like even in the area where I live, I've lived in this particular area of my state for 6, 7, 8 years or so now. And it's blown up and grown exponentially to the point where it's too. A lot of people that have been here their whole lives hate it now, and that's sad. That's sad. People who have set up their homes and their lives and their futures here are hating what it's become. That says a lot.
There are neighbors that bought lots, and there was one next door to us. Not 7 months ago, about a year ago, they started clearing it and building on it. Now we tried to buy this lot. Right. And it was just the one next door to my family's house. And they were like, oh, it's too narrow to build on. You can't. So they said Lakewood Park is full of these lots, so it will remain lakes and woods. That's why it's Lakewood Park. People will always have like a little bit of privacy on each block. One side will be covered with woods or a lake. That's kind of cool. I respected that. Right. Then all of a sudden they start clearing it to build a house. Now up the street, hold on a minute. Give me a second.
The chickens aren't a problem. The dogs aren't a problem, but the chickens are.
Yeah, right.
Barking at the neighbors.
I was just saying, Josh, the chickens aren't a problem, or the dogs aren't a problem, but the chickens are.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the ridiculous part. The hens that make no noise. But it's just really messed up because like now people, they bought homes and have lived in a neighborhood for 20 years with the guarantee that there would always be a piece of wood next door. Now all of a sudden an HOA takes over.
Oh, to hell with the HOA, man. I mean, I would never. Oof. HOAs are it's like Bobby Boucher, they the devil.
You ain't kidding. Yeah, next thing you know, you got Baba Yaga living next door. But anyways, it's just absurd. It really is, and they've literally stripped all of our rights away without saying, hey, we're taking your rights away because they're religious rights, but they can make it illegal to do everything like mushrooms. I'm sorry, that's been in our culture for I may not do it personally myself all the time, right? But I'm not going to say I don't or that I never will, because there are times where I need guidance and that's where I go.
Mm-hmm.
It's been in our faith for 5,000 years. Why can't I do it? You know, and that's the part that really gets to me. Not the so much that I want to do all of these things that we should have rights to. It's that we should have rights to and don't.
Right. Yeah.
But isn't it a matter of just taking it into your own hands? Like whatever the government is taking from you, they're not gonna give it back. You know, not unless you make a huge stink of it.
Basically, you have to wind up in a courtroom if you want to challenge it, and that's the terrible part too, because who can afford that?
You're gonna like, to that point, yeah, you're gonna have that, and then you're also to any extent home ownership, land ownership here in the United States. You are this generation of people growing up in this generation now are virtually inept to be able to own their own land because it's so expensive. Number one, the taxes are outrageous. You know, so it's almost like they've set it up to where only the elite can afford it, and the people that want to, for private reasons, for personal reasons, for wholesome, holistic reasons, are incapable of doing so because it would destroy them financially, and they just don't have the means to be able to do it. So on top of the legality proceedings that would ensue from having to fight it in court, there's just the monetary challenge that not many people can get ahead of.
Yep. And especially, let's say somebody is trying to self-sustain. That's probably also a good indication that they don't have a lot of money to challenge you in court. You know,
yeah,
that any finances they have will probably be tied up into the little bit of self-sustaining that they're doing on their property.
Right. Yeah. It's been made an impossible battle. Now there are states, don't get me wrong, there are states over here that you can still do it, right? Virginia, Tennessee, there's some states up in the Appalachians that they have cheap enough land that it's quite possible. If somebody wanted to do that in, let's say, Florida or California, though, you could never buy enough land to actually pull it off. You'd never be able to afford it unless you're a billionaire, you know? Like, you could still go to Virginia and find land for $2,000-$3,000 an acre. You can go to Tennessee, find land for $4,000 or $5,000 an acre. In Florida, $110,000 an acre, and that's just for the land. And it's not even good land.
No, we got some really fertile land here, dude. I can't say that.
North Alabama or like North Florida, Panhandle
I
area.
live in Central Florida. Central Florida. It's not a it's fucking hot, dude.
Oh, I know.
Like, somebody with Germanic blood, man, it hurts. 9 months out of the year, I'm pinned inside under the AC.
I know. I'm in Tennessee myself, so I mean, I know.
See, that's gorgeous, dude. I love the Cumberland Gap area.
Yeah, I'm in Middle Tennessee, so that's right around my neck of the woods.
Yeah, man. Our goal is to buy a chunk of land up in that area, probably around somewhere around the Cumberland Plateau to the Cumberland Gap, between Kentucky, Virginia, Tennessee, and that tri-state meeting point.
If you go north and east of where I am, there's plenty of it up there, and it's nicer than, because I'm just southeast of Nashville.
I envy you. I envy you. That's a gorgeous area, bro. And the thing is about up there, like, when you're up in the mountains, as long as you're not harming another person, your neighbors don't care what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, if you're kind and courteous to them and you ain't hurting them or nobody else, they don't care.
And you've got an ally, really, you know, because they appreciate it. They know it, and it aligns with their customs and their traditions out there. So they're right there with you.
I love that area because of that. In Florida, if you break down, there's a perfect example right here. Break down in Florida with a flat tire and a kid standing on the side of the road, right? nobody will stop to help, but everybody will drive by going, "Aw, somebody will stop to help them," and they just keep on driving. "Aw, somebody will
Take a
stop to
picture
help
and
them."
post it on social
Right?
media, sending prayers. You know.
No joke, right? That's just about it, right? Now you cross the Florida line into South Georgia and break down every effing car that drives by. Do you need a ride? Do you need to use my phone? Can I help you change the tire? It's a completely different world, dude. Like we got all of the snowbirds, and it passes along, man. Like the migrants bring their attitude with them from New England.
Yeah, and I'm a transplant myself, dude. I'm from New York originally, but I've lived in Tennessee now for almost 20 years.
Now, did you live in the city area or did you live upstate? Because upstate's gorgeous. I've been up in the Adirondacks and the Catskills. Gorgeous area.
Yeah, I'm originally from Long Island, and my family
I'm so
moved.
sorry, bro.
Yeah, well, my family moved us off the island when I was about 12 or 13 to the lower foothills of the Catskills, so the Hudson Valley,
Gorgeous.
which is built up crazy like that too. But it's there's, you know, you don't have to go very far to really be disconnected from what the city influences bring.
Yes.
But it's there. But New York State is a beautiful state. There's more country to it than what people even know about that aren't from there or that have never been there. Everybody hears New York and they're like, "Oh, the city." I'm like, it's like a pinhead size in comparison to the whole.
Get up outside of Rome and Ithaca and up by like the Finger Lakes, by Lake Hasayuna, and oh my God, dude, it's a whole nother world. It's gorgeous. You couldn't even tell that New York City existed from there.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. That's where Stein, I don't know if you ever like the Woodstock in 1969, the Woodstock Festival, Bethel, New York.
I've heard from it.
So it was like the very first like open air festival that the United States ever had. It really was like the pioneer foundation of all future open air festivals. And Woodstock
planned on being like a 30,000 person concert.
450,000 people later, right? And no major injuries, but it was in Bethel, which is where it was held, where my parents live and where they moved us to, where my mom lives now. It's like a 20-30 minute drive to Bethel. So we were like, all of those like pictures, if you look online about cars parked on a highway and people had to walk to get to Woodstock.
Dude.
Those highways, I've been there, man. Like it's all still there. Yeah.
Miles, cars backed up, people walking into the concert from 20, 30 miles away, dude.
Yeah.
It got
no tickets. They just showed up. Like, what are we going to do about it?
It shut down the traffic in most of New England.
Yeah.
Because the turnpikes and the freeways were just done.
True story.
Yeah. Imagine doing that now.
Nobody, and that was the thing. It was peaceful. Everybody had fun. Now, there were people that got dehydrated and whatnot, and it was a 3-day festival, so some people got malnourished and dehydrated over the event. But that's, no
major violence. No major injuries, considering the size that it was and minimal injuries there were, it was a real eye opener.
It was an estimated 500,000 people.
Yeah,
but they know in and out there was more.
Right.
Wow, that's crazy.
And it was for the love of music. It was for the love of just bringing people together, and that's like that's a vision right there that I can.
The whole thing was an accident.
They had no idea.
It meant to be a really small field concert with a couple good headliner bands, and then all of a sudden it just got carried away.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing story, a part of history.
See what can happen if you just do things out of love for music, out of love for each other. That's amazing.
So you're somewhere at the south end of the Cumberland Plateau. Is there a lot of archaeology going on around there right now?
If there is, I'm not intimately involved with it, but I know there are a lot of like nature hikes and trails that people venture out into, and a lot of folks will document their findings. You know what I mean? So not like earth digging stuff, but like caves and ruins of cabins and other things like that people discover. It's
That area is so history rich.
it is. It really is. And where I live in the state, I am just within walking distance of a Civil War battleground. So the Stones River. I live right on the Stones River.
Right
And,
on.
if you Google or research, Stones River during the Civil War, so much of history, American history, that shaped this nation happened literally in my backyard.
You know where the Daniel Boone State Park is?
Yeah.
Just north in the Cumberland Gap. They had that old historic forge up there where they were literally smelting iron for the Civil War, and there's like so much different shit happened in that one little corner that nobody knew about because it was in an isolated valley. They were able to sit there and manufacture so much stuff, and nobody knew where it was coming from.
When you're tucked into these hollers that are all across that area of the state, in between mountains, you get lost, man. Nobody knows what's going on down in some of these hollers. I have a section of the Trail of Tears that runs right through, like a couple of miles down our road. Historical markers. It's rich with history, and you think back on what was happening 200 years ago, which is relatively recent, history, and like, damn, I'm here now, and what was going on back then, and just putting it into perspective. It's
imagine being in the faith that we're in right now and living 200 years ago.
In this area, or just in general. Yeah,
just in general in America, anywhere in the colonies or anywhere in the developed U.S.
I
200 years ago.
I think that people who believe the way, like Germanic heathenry, if those people who existed here that had the same skin color as us, I think that we at that time would have allied with the indigenous people, and we would have worked together.
They did in Florida. There were Viking families that living here that were pineapple farmers that allied with the Indians in the area and fought on their side. And the area I live in, there's an area called Viking Indrio, and it's a historic spot where some of the first Scandinavian settlers came here. It was a prominent family, and they created a lot of farmland that eventually Henry Flagler choked out of fertilizer and the means to keep farming, and collapsed the whole empire.
Was it is it the Seminoles in your area, or who were they? The native indigenous people in your area?
There were two tribes, and one of them was a Seminole branch, but there was another tribe, and I cannot think of the name of them off the top of my head.
You've got all kinds of stuff like Okeechobee, or I have Algonquin ancestry, and what a lot of people seem to forget is how, like, is it 300, 400 years before Columbus discovered, right, or ran into the Americas, Scandinavians came over, and they came and they left because they were like, these guys have got it over here. Like, we're not trying to fuck with the indigenous people over here. Like, they came over, they saw, they like, all right, we're going back home now. And
in the very north corners of Canada, they did create a couple small pockets, and they lived right alongside the Thule, I think it was at the time.
You're right. Yep.
And they basically coexisted, and eventually over time they interbred a lot. Mm-hmm. And there were entire populations of I want to say they were Danish, if I'm not mistaken.
Dutch.
Were they Dutch? Okay, they were Dutch, and they did create some colonies, and it was almost 1,000 years ago. Mm-hmm. So that puts them right about the time of Leif Erikson and all of that stuff, but it was just small pockets. It wasn't ever big settlements. There was no mass migrations.
Right. They just kind of I guess just stumbled across it and was like, oh wow, you guys are doing your thing here. But yeah,
can we observe you for a little while? They did. They were like, hey, we kind of like that. Will you teach us a little more? And that was it.
I mean,
Yep.
mass migrations from the Netherlands, like we wouldn't have any people left here. Like,
Right. You had probably a
mean-
few small, prominent families that were like, "We're gonna go find something, guys. We'll be back whenever." And
I mean,
The true
my-
founding of America was all by Dutch, dude. It was all by super wealthy Dutch people. I
Yeah,
mean, you
dude,
could call America New York and New England and all these other things, but I'm sorry, it was New Amsterdam first, and every piece of those colonies were built up by very wealthy
My-
Dutch people.
my hometown is actually where a lot of pilgrims lived before they went on the Mayflower. Like we have a whole pilgrim museum here dedicated
really,
to it. Yeah, like I never really thought about it. I heard, but I actually, until I started dating Firefay, I never really gave it a thought, but started reading up on the history a bit, and actually my hometown is the last place that these
It picked up
pilgrims
people
or
before the
who became the pilgrims, where they lived before they went on the Mayflower. And a lot of them actually decided to stay here as well, because they had families, and good, they had a decent job and a nice home, and didn't really see
People
any
think-
reason to flee. Plus religious freedom, like we've always, pretty much always, no, that's not true, not always, but for Catholics, Protestants, there was really no religious persecution. So people just
have a
kept,
common misconception that the Mayflower, though, Stein, was actually just all English immigrants. Like, that's what they teach in school, and I'm not joking. Like, if you look it up, the Mayflower was basically all English immigrants from Cornwall and Wales, and it's like, like that's
No,
just
it was-
not how it was.
it was a lot of Irish as well, and a lot of Dutch farmers.
Yes, there was.
I mean, as you mentioned, New Amsterdam, New York was founded by the Dutch. The
my
Vanderbilt,
ancestors.
the Vanderbilt family, for example. De Bilt is a town near Utrecht. Like,
They're
it's
only one of the many.
I mean, the whole, basically all the 13 families, if you will,
Rockefeller, Rothschild.
they all either tie back to the Netherlands or tie back to Germany.
And I want to say that when it came to, like you mentioned earlier, Stein, like the religious influences or persecutions weren't like I mean, we go back like way back, like I'm talking like old Saxony, like wasn't
Sure.
Holland and the Netherlands, and like weren't they some of the early ones that just adopted Christianity in favor of their pagan beliefs without much of a fight? Am I wrong with that? Or
The Jarls were bought, and they
Yeah.
basically forced conversions.
But it were the Frisians.
the Frisians, that's
who
the
were,
ones I'm thinking.
who were the people who, I mean, nowadays
Yep.
Frisia is but one province all the way up north, northwest. But in those times, the Frisians were the people who basically lived along the entire coastline of the Netherlands. They held on. They held strong. I mean,
That's right, because the Saxon Wars. Yeah, that's right. I'm
I believe it was Bonifacius who made the
They
mistake.
went all the way up to Wittekind, or all the way back, should I say, to
Yeah.
Wittekind. That started a whole. I was looking into that, dude, and like the other day when I was writing that article, I started looking into when the pagan wars started, when they started wiping the pagan people, and it was right at about 350 AD, right? And the first ones to get done by Rome were the Etruscans, right north of them. And then it literally just shot like fire from there up north into Europe. Dude, it was crazy. If you watch the expansion map, like broke down over time, Rome got big fast.
The The Romans got pretty far, although they didn't like the Netherlands much because back in those times it was marshlands. Like we were all marshlands with some farms here and there on a hill. You know, the only thing that's literally high and dry. So you know, you come here with your your slippers and no pants because that was barbaric. You don't wear pants. You just wear your tunic and coming from the nice Italian Mediterranean weather in this freaking cold swampy marshlands. They were like, you know what? This fucking sucks. Let's just
they got to
there's a
stand
big
outside in the mud and battle a city with high walls that's got archers all around it, shooting down at them in
yeah
the mud. Yeah, not a good
that
idea.
too. Plus,
The
like I
strategies
said,
were great.
we didn't really when they came in, we didn't have towns really. It was a couple of farms here and there. So, who are you going to conquer? The farmer over there, or the farmer like 20K away over there? There's no use. You're spending so much energy and man and power and armor and whatever to
See, back
overthrow
then, so little.
couple of farmers on a terp in marshlands. It's so they went up to the river Rhine and they were like, you know what? This is where we call it. We'll build a few towers here so that we have a lookout over the water, so that if those damn Frisians, come over the water, then at least we spot them and we can handle them. Because I mean, if us Dutchies, if we do one thing well, it's work with water. I mean, we're literally surrounded by it. The Netherlands is called the Netherlands because most of our country is below sea level. If the dikes were to break, if we were to have a repeat of 1953, then I'd be drowning here. I wouldn't be far enough land inwards to
We've
not
got.
drown. I'd have to go past Utrecht, which is like an hour and a half drive from here. Only then I would actually be somewhat safe and not drown.
We've got an abomination of engineering in Florida that, I've been watching this. The wall around Lake Okeechobee was built by the Army Corps of Engineers. There are trailer parks right on the other side of this earthen wall that's like 60 feet tall. Now, when you go up to the top of the wall, you're looking at water level of Lake Okeechobee, right? And then you're looking down 60 feet below you, and there are trailer parks with 100 trailers. And then they line the entire highway going all the way up. And you're like, bro, one little fracture in that wall, and all of these people are submersible. Like,
you should have hired the Dutch.
Dude, the storms that we get sometimes, bro, and knowing how much water can fall out of the sky, how fast, and you see those areas, and oh my God, Stein, dude, they wind up underwater just with basic rainstorms. I mean, when we actually have real hurricanes roll through, it's devastating, but they don't learn.
We created a whole new province. Like we literally made, we just dried up a piece of the ocean or the sea, the Southern Sea, which, well, back then was the Southern Sea. Now it's a lake because, we built a dam and we dried a whole piece up and like made a whole new province just because
you guys perfected farming on marshland a long time ago.
We had to. It was the only land available, and I guess that's why we, eat so many potatoes and all of it. And those always grow well. It doesn't matter, cold weather, warm weather, potatoes. We're good.
It makes sense why where I'm from, was so welcomed by, like, when the Dutch came, they're like, this is like home now, because it's a lot of marshlands. And the indigenous people from where I'm at, the Algonquin, New England, New York, like that whole northeast sector of the United States is so reminiscent of where they came from and why they settled here. It was like just a home away from home.
Yeah, I think you're in Chickasaw and Choctaw territory right now. In Tennessee, right?
Yeah. I mean, subsections or sub tribes of the Cherokee Nation. Choctaw is Chickasaw and Choctaw are prominent. I know a lot of people who have ancestry out in Appalachia, grandparents and stuff who were Choctaw.
But yeah, if it's really marshy, swampy over there, then it wouldn't surprise me that a lot of Dutch settled there because like you said, it's terrain we know, it's terrain we can work. So no need for too many major adjustments.
Yeah, you adapt just easily.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, humans in general are very good, at adapting. We find an environment and we learn how to live in it. If we want a peaceful way of life, there's always been sects of humanity that decide, okay, I don't like the city life anymore. They break away, they go off into the countryside somewhere and they live. And, it's usually those people that wind up carrying down our faith. Just imagine if everybody lived in cities back then like they live in now. I mean, the witch hunts would have been ridiculous. It would have been nuts.
It's also it's so funny when you think of it that when in, let's say, our grandparents' age, if you wanted to move out, you went to the city because that's where the work is, that's where the money is, that's where you can raise a family because there is work and all of that. And now everyone of our generation is like, I'm gonna move out. I'm gonna move out of the city. I'm gonna move back to the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With American manufacturing standards changing, our cities are changing.
Dude, even here in the Netherlands. Even here in the Netherlands, people, living in the Randstad, the economic triangle here, are like, no, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna make my money, I'm gonna save up, and I'm gonna move to, some of the eastern provinces where I can get either, the same house for half the price, or for the same price get twice the space.
Yeah,
and there's the people there are a lot more friendly. The air is cleaner because all the factories are here.
You can see stars at night.
Yeah,
go figure. Actually see stars instead of just, I don't know, city lights and whatever. And that's
light pollution.
Oh, it's a thing. It's a thing here, and it's such a shame. A lot of,
I think that's our biggest disconnect to our ancestors from nature. It's light pollution, electrical wave pollution, dude. We're just getting inundated with waves from every direction.
I agree, and I've been on this stance for a very long time now, and I try to share with my platform as well is disconnect yourself from all of this technology that has become we've become so engrossed in. Take your shoes off, walk barefoot in the ground, reconnect with the earth, because there are literally science backs this up, that the negative and positive charges that are emitting from the earth, we are receptors of that, and we are her. She is us and we are her, and it's not that we're on this earth, we are this earth. And nobody takes that time to take their shirts off, get their bare skin in the sun, put their bare skin on the ground and connect. And it's so important. It's so necessary to really be enriching and
we can change the structure of water by thinking at it. All right. Bless your water before you drink it. It's the simplest thing in the world to do. Just think positive thoughts towards your water. Fill it with positive energy. And there's proof that this can be done. Do it. It changes so much so fast, dude. Just the little things that people can do to reconnect. I totally agree.
Put on some Barry White, lowered, turn down the lights a bit, and just
become one with Mother Nature again, dude.
You said put on some Barry White. We're gonna make some love. out here in the world, man. Yeah.
Oh, I'm talking a whole different mama.
That's a baby making era right there, dude. We're not trying to fuck. We're trying to procreate, baby. You know?
Like, that's what's connecting to nature at its root, dude.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'll root it down. Don't you worry.
I do. I make a point of going on barefoot walks in the yard or along the river, along the greenway, in the river itself. I make a point of every day, even if it's just a few minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever I'm able to. I've gone on 5-mile long walks through the woods barefoot. But
It's Florida, it's too hot to wear shoes here.
Just something, anything to, and I guarantee people who listening or watching that capture this, if you don't and aren't doing that, if you're not putting your bare feet on the ground, start doing it. And I defy you to tell me that you won't feel better afterwards, that your quality of life won't improve by doing just that simple thing. You know,
people make fun of the saying touch grass, bro. That is one of the most legitimate things I have ever seen. Touch grass. Do it. Connect yourself to something that's rooted into the earth.
Yeah. It's a meme, but it's true.
Yes. Yeah. I prefer oaks, trees, older trees. Just lean against one, put your bare skin against a tree, look up at the sky, and just sit there for a minute.
I've laid down under so many trees, oaks, cedars, just, anything, but being a part of that network. You were talking earlier about, Josh, you were talking earlier about mushrooms, the mycelium network that speaks to literally every other living organism, rocks, trees, the air, the plants. I mean, you become a part of that network when you touch the ground. Of course, the mushrooms can enhance the experience, but just that simple gesture of being present and being a part of that system changes everything for at least it has for me. Like you realize that you're not just here.
No, you're not wrong at all, bro.
You are it. Like it's you. It's them. It's us. It's all of us. We're all interconnected. We're all part of that network. And some people have just, by design or by choice or inadvertently, they've removed themselves from that network. We'll get back in it, man. Tap back into that system and see how things. I'm not saying it's going to be like life-changing per se, but it's going to really give you a perspective on just what you're a part of and what you are essentially made up of.
Start out with a single food plant. Grow a single food plant from seed to feed and just feel that. You know what I mean? Just that one little connection helps, anything just in that direction. We're just moving so far away from it that it's hurting our everything, dude. Our spirituality, our community, everything.
Yeah, agronomy is such a beneficial perspective to take. It's such a beneficial lifestyle to absorb to whatever degree you're able to. Some people may be able to do it more than others, but like you're saying, just that one simple thing, just grow an herb, grow a small edible plant, whatever, and see the connection that you develop and nurture when you do those things. There's more to it than just ingesting the food as fuel, right? It's the experience, it's the connection, it's the whole ritual aspect of existing.
That's
symbiotically.
Exactly. The understanding that food doesn't just come from grocery stores. You know what I mean? That we are connected to nature because we are literally consuming it and have no clue where it's coming from, dude. And I think that's been the biggest perversion of humanity has been through our diet. I mean, God, they're killing us, dude. Like, American food standards are fucked. Pardon my French, Stein. I don't want to get us flagged, but
no, it's fine. It's fine, bro.
It's just I try to keep it down, but man, it's horrible, dude. Like, the FDA has approved literal poisons. Like, other countries have labeled many food products that we just put in food here on a willy-nilly as poison.
I see some of those videos or some of those articles every once in a while, like whatever is allowed in the US and like what products are not allowed anywhere else. And it's, like a whole 10-part list, and they'll make like 3 of them. And it's like, oh, it's legal in the US, but you can't sell it in Europe because it contains traces of this and traces of that, and is, you know, washed in this and baked in that, and it's like,
Do you guys want to hear something crazy?
so why the hell are they
My
eating
diet.
it?
My diet threw me back into my faith. And that's going to sound so freaking crazy. But I know Stein knows part of the story. I got pancreatitis, right? So I have basically now started eating only organic food. When I did that, I began to feel faith again. Like I feel like I was feeling my pineal decalcify. I don't know how else to word it. You know what I mean? Like I felt more connected the more organically I ate. And it was weird, dude, because I began journaling my food, and I'd never paid attention to what I ate. And that's probably my biggest problem and why I suffered from pancreatitis, dude. I was ingesting the American hogwash, you know, and it fucking almost killed me. And changing my diet, I had fallen away from spirituality almost totally. And in changing my diet, it came back to me in such a fast wave that I felt it. It was weird.
Makes sense.
I recognized it exactly for what it was too.
But it will actually do that. There have been studies that, like, eating clean, eating organic, eating as nature intended it to,
Food that's grown in a natural biome and not by fertilizer and silica dirt.
Yeah, you know, that it's not just healthy for you, it keeps your brain healthy, it keeps you connected to the outside world. And like, why do you think that all these like 600-pound people or whatever who like go to Burger King for breakfast, dinner, and lunch, and I don't know, like consume
It's fatal, bro. They've created
30,000 calories a day, but all empty calories. They are literally, and I don't mean to, well, I don't mean to be mean, but they're literally dumb. They're literally stupid. They ate themselves stupid because there is no nourishment to be had.
Another thing, I find this is underrated. I carry a piece of white quartz in my pocket. My wife bought it for me. It's just a little calming stone. It's smooth. I hold it in my hand. But I carry it with me. And it has a certain energy. Like it grounds me. You know what I mean? When I'm pissed off, I'll grab it and it just reconnects me. It reconnects me. Yes. And like, I think just little pieces of nature like this are so underrated by people anymore.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a piece of cherry that a friend of mine made out of a tree from his yard. That is, I mean, it's literally a cherry tree from his yard. I've been to his house. I know the tree that he got this from. You know, organic.
That is awesome.
Is definitely something that I feel is when we touch it, when we put our skin to those organic materials, we are reconnecting with who we truly are, and it's holistic. It heals not just our body, but our inner selves, our whole selves. Our mental health improves, our physical health improves. All the things that you're talking about, eating as nature intended, has a compound effect on us as a sentient being. We're able to solve problems better. We're able to physically perform tasks better. We're able to love and interact with our friends, families, and tribes better. All of these things benefit from just doing the thing that we were supposed to be doing all along, that has become almost like we have to think about it now to achieve it.
Because it's been so ingrained in us by the industrial revolution of food that we are now basically eating hollow food all the time.
The industrial revolution.
You feel full, but you don't feel fulfilled.
Yes.
You know, speaking of the industrial revolution, real quick, rest in peace, Ted Kaczynski.
The first MK Ultra man. Well, one of the first.
Yeah, MK Ultra, Spook, whatever. But yeah, I just saw that he passed today. Another great man who has joined himself with the gods, even though like opinions are vastly different and divided. But
once his mind broke and he started sending bombs in the mail, that I think that we can discount what happened after that. But like the things that he studied and wrote were fascinating. I mean, when all that crap came out afterwards, I got to admit it was interesting. I can't say I adhere to any of it myself, but he did have a very unique way of looking at things from a natural perspective.
To say the least, yeah, for sure. But fellas, we have been going on for way longer than I thought we would. It's it's 2.5 hours, closing in on 2.5 hours. So I think we should wrap it up here. It's 10:30 in the meantime. For me, I still gotta have dinner. I guess I'll just order something. So
I'm 10 minutes late.
This has been 10 minutes late for what?
Oh, it's 4:20 here. 4:30 actually.
Oh, dude, better spark it. But he's never
I
late.
have a license.
Light it up, son. Light it up.
Oh yeah, hey, it's all natural, right?
Absolutely. But thank you for having me. Thank you for. I just want to say, Stein. Appreciate the shout out. Thank you for inviting me, particularly on the podcast. It's been a blast, and thank you for the extended time.
Yeah,
taking
no,
time of your day.
definitely. I didn't imagine we would go on for this long, but first Firefay, and then Josh had some things to say, and then the flow keeps going and the ball keeps rolling. So
Absolutely.
Come to the tribe, man. Come to the tribe main chat. Drop your thoughts. See what we're saying. It's always fun to have an extra perspective.
Everything can, of course, be found through our website, www.greyhornpagans.com. Jesse, plug your stuff, plug your channel, anything that you're currently working on that the people need to know.
Sure. Yep. So Midgard Musings is the YouTube channel. You can find me, Midgard Musings, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. If you're into podcasts, more auditory podcasts, then you can find me anywhere podcasts are streamed under the name Random Heathen Ramblings. I'm on Spotify, Apple, Google, Pandora, etc., everywhere. And yeah, I upload new episodes every Thursday, which is they air 9 a.m. Eastern time every Thursday mornings. So yeah, please give me a follow, give me a like, subscribe, show your support, all that way. So yeah, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. All the links are, of course, in the description below. I make sure to do that for all my guests. You can find Firefay, Josh, and myself. We've had 3 tribal members on, 3 of the tribal elders. In the tribe of the Greyhorn Pagans, we are most active on Telegram, of course, but you can, like I said, you can find everywhere we are, all that we do. You can find it through our website, www.greyhornpagans.com.
That's the spot.
It has been a blast. It has been an absolute joy for all who were, for all who are watching, for all who are listening. Give us a like, give us a share, subscribe, comment on the audio platforms. Give us that 5-star rating that every other good podcaster is begging about, because algorithms and such, it is set to help. So why not? Little effort. Thank you all. Thank you to Jesse. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Firefay. And until next time, see ya.